Hey, it's Mike from brew-juice.com. So tonight what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to show and demonstrate, another little trick with the kegging system, is how to force carbonate your beer faster than normal. So let's say you've got a beer, it's finished fermenting, and you put it in the keg and you want to serve it to your uncle that's coming in from Seattle, or you've got a party this weekend, it's like 2 days away. How do you get that beer carbonated and ready to drink in a very short period of time? Normally, the normal method is you look at a carbonation table based on your temperature and how much carbonation you want to have in it, and you set to a certain PSI. You have to balance that with your kegging system, which we've talked about in the past. Normally that's around 12 PSI or something like that. And that's fine. You can let the beer sit for a week or 2 weeks and it will carbonate, and it carbonates beautifully that way, and when it's done carbonating, you're at serving pressure, ready to go. But if you really are limited for time and you want to do 2 days or 3 days, I'm going to show you how to do it with this keg that I have here. The way that this starts is you're going to crank up the pressure on your regulator to 20 to 30 psi, whatever you're comfortable with. Then you're going to shake the keg, and you'll hear gas flowing from the regulator into the beer as you shake it and shake it and shake it. Normally I do this a couple times. I'll shake it, I'll go away for an hour and come back and shake it some more, go away and come back. So every time you let it sit, it's kind of like shaking up a soda or something. You got to let it sit before the carbonation really gets in the beer, even though you can hear it flowing as you go. But the big warning with this is it's very easy to overcarbonate beer. So I like to kind of go slowly. I usually use 20 psi, 25 psi if I'm really getting anxious and I want to do it fast. So let me just show you the basic technique, and then we'll talk about overcarbon. So the beer has to be cold first. I just pulled this out of the keg. You can see it's sweating here in the hot garage. So the keg is cold, the beer is cold. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to dial this up, the PSI in my regulator up a little bit until I get to about 20 PSI or so. It's where I want it to be. And then I just simply lean it over like this and just gently shake it. And you probably can't hear it, but the CO2 starts to flow in there a little bit. And I just shake it gently like this, and then let it go. And come back a little bit later, after about 10, 20 minutes or an hour, and shake it some more, and just keep going. The best way to tell how well you're carbonating is kind of taste as you go. So I do have it hooked up to the kegerator. I will taste, just take a few ounces every so often to see how, you'll be able to taste the carbonation coming up. It's actually an interesting way to see what different levels of CO2 taste like, even though you won't really know what the real CO2 level is. So, like I said before, so the danger with this method is overcarbonating, and it's very easy to overcarbonate the beer, especially if you leave it at 20 to 30 psi overnight and you come back and you've shaken it and it's really full of CO2. The only way to get around that at that point is disconnect the gas and to burp the keg, completely burp the keg with the pop-it relief valve in the center of the lid. And then, again, taste as you go. So you're going to have to burp, let it completely depressurize, and more gas will come out. Just like cracking the top of a bottle of soda or a beer, eventually it goes flat. So the difficult part is catching it before it's flat, burping, and there's no good science to burping. You can't sort of do a half of a burp or something. So this method isn't my favorite method, but it works if you want to go fast. So one last thing I want to talk about with the shaking method, another detriment, is that you're not going to get clear beer by doing this because it takes time for the beer to settle in the keg. And when you are shaking it, anything that has settled comes back up into the keg. The other thing you need to be really careful about is before you start shaking a beer, make sure you've purged all the oxygen out of that keg, that you've burped it several times with CO2, because if you start shaking it with your O2 in there, you're going to stale the beer pretty fast as well. Those are the main things to look out for when you're doing trying to rapid carbonate. I've done it several times successfully, but I've probably just as many times overshot it and had to burp to release pressure. So that's how you rapid carbonate. The best thing I can say is good luck, and I prefer the set it and forget it method, but this is the way to do it if you want to do it fast. So from Mike at brew-juice.com, that's fast carbing. Cheers.